Piece of cake.
Aaron Sorkin is one of the best-known Hollywood scriptwriters of our time. Many have praised him throughout his career for fast-paced, witty dialogue that dates all the way back to The West Wing and is carried through to even his most recent work.
It usually takes people a better part of an hour to hate me and everything I stand for.
I'm the press secretary, boo-boo. I don't have that kind of time.
Not embarrassed, she just made a lot of that up.
She was under oath.
Then I guess that would be the first time somebody's lied under oath.
You didn't have seconds. You had 3 weeks. The universe was created in a third of that time.
Well, someday you'll have to tell us how you did it.
But in this video, I'd like to highlight how this particular brand of cleverness, which we see all over Hollywood, can sometimes hurt an otherwise excellent script. In my opinion, when overused, cleverness can sometimes interfere with the architecture of a story, often robbing characters of their unique personalities and stripping scenes of their full emotional punch. But before I get into how this actually plays out, I would like to say that when The Social Network, Aaron Sorkin's most lauded script to date, actually came out, it was by far my favorite movie of the year. But now that I've been trying to hone my own craft as a writer and notice myself falling into some of these same habits, I think the shortcomings of these constant clever quips are important to define and recognize. My first problem with Sorkin's dialogue is that the wittier the characters are, the more they all start to sound exactly the same. In most movies, some characters are quicker to a punchline, others are slower, some speak in a measured, restrained tone, others might fly off the handle. But Sorkin's characters often all take on this weirdly consistent Sorkin voice. In The Social Network, for example, Eduardo is clearly distinguished from Zuckerberg in terms of his actions and his early attitudes toward Facebook, but often in the way they actually communicate, it can be hard to tell them apart.
He's 25 minutes late. He founded Napster when he was 19. He can be late.
He's not a god.
And what is he?
He's 25 minutes late.
In fact, it was that level of sophistication that led us to you in less than 4 hours.
4 hours?
Yes, sir.
That would be impressive, except if you had known what you were looking for, you would have seen it written on my dorm room window. So what do you think?
Yeah, sure, let's drop the
I meant catching the marlin instead of the 14 trout. Doesn't that sound good?
if you're a trout.
This same constant verbal jousting comes when we meet Sean Parker, who acts almost like a Sorkin character on steroids.
I founded Napster.
Sean Parker founded Napster.
Nice to meet you.
You're Sean Parker?
Aha! You see, the shoe's on the other,
Foot.
table, which is turned.
When you go fishing, you can catch a lot of fish, or you can catch a big fish. You ever walk into a guy's den and see a picture of him standing next to 14 trout?
No, he's holding a 3,000-pound marlin.
Yep.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, it is a good analogy. And so is this.
It's like you're throwing the greatest party on campus and someone saying it's gotta be over by 11.
And this.
But I guess to them that was a little like selling a stolen car to pay for the stolen gas. So
And trust me, I could do this all day. Hell, even the nameless extras who get one line in the movie pull out these same clever little lines.
I've never been in this building before.
This building's 100 years older than the country it's in, so do be careful.
You're saying it's unusual for 4 in the morning?
No, this would be unusual for halftime at the Super Bowl. Whatever happened to Cole Porter and Irving Berlin?
It's a Valentine's Day theme. They're playing love songs.
Good point, because Cole Porter and Irving Berlin never wrote any love songs.
Essentially, what could have been a cast of rich, complex, unique characters has become a multi-headed vehicle for delivering Aaron Sorkin's cleverest quips. And beyond making characters unique, another key goal in fiction is to make them consistent. Perhaps the most confounding use of cleverness I've seen in a Sorkin script comes from the character of Steve Wozniak in the film Steve Jobs. Played by Seth Rogen, Wozniak sticks out like a sore thumb in the first scene because he's the only character in the movie who can't keep up with the fast-paced, witty dialogue.
Yeah, you should see this crowd out there. This crowd, it's like,
Can't really wait for you to come up with a metaphor, man.
But less than 8 minutes later, even Wozniak is all of a sudden coming up with his own stinger.
computers aren't supposed to have human flaws. I'm not going to build this one with yours.
So not only is Sorkin willing to sacrifice uniqueness for cleverness, but he's also willing to sacrifice consistency, allowing Woz to simultaneously be the less charismatic, more awkward sidekick, and to rip a clever line every once in a while if it happens to pop into Sorkin's head. In other words, all this cleverness can ruin good character development, which, in my opinion, is the heart of most great storytelling. All this, of course, comes back to the cliched but undeniably important truism, kill your darlings. With Sorkin, it's almost as if As if, how should I put this?
As if every thought that tumbles through your head was so clever it would be a crime for it not to be shared.
Well, that's a little harsh, but yeah, that's the idea. Now, beyond its effect on characters, I think Hollywood scriptwriters often sacrifice emotion for cleverness too. To get a better understanding of what I mean by that, watch this reaction from Max Minghella after the clever line from the nameless extra I showed earlier.
Good point, because Cole Porter and Irving Berlin never wrote any love songs.
In my opinion, this clip perfectly sums up the type of reaction expected from this kind of line. It's quick, it's vaguely satisfying, and it puts a smile on your face. And of course there's nothing wrong with that. Movies can elicit whatever reaction they want. But in my opinion, these clever lines can be distracting in scenes that seem to otherwise be going for a deeper emotional resonance. The epitome of this tendency comes in one of the Social Network's final scenes, when Eduardo Savern realizes he's been cut out of the picture at Facebook. And though Andrew Garfield's impressive acting performance conveys all the sadness and anger we might expect, in the lines he actually delivers, Sorkin still can't resist maintaining this clever banter.
It's gonna be like I'm not a part of Facebook.
It won't be like you're not a part of Facebook. You're not a part of Facebook.
My name's on the masthead.
You might want to check again.
It's because I froze the account?
You think we were gonna let you parade around in your ridiculous suits pretending you were running this company?
Sorry! My Prada's at the cleaners! Along with my hoodie and my fuck you flip-flops, you pretentious douchebag!
Here, I personally feel pulled out of the scene for a moment to register Savern's clever comeback. But the quick chuckle it produces doesn't match the true tension of the scene. It doesn't match the final destruction of Zuckerberg's last friendship in the world. The whole emotional crescendo of the film is sacrificed for wit. To fully understand what isn't working for me about these clever lines, I think a counterexample might be necessary. One movie where the clever quips not only work, but even add to the film's character development is Manchester by the Sea. In this scene, Patrick's clever lines are not only funny, but more importantly, they represent the slow building of trust between him and his Uncle Lee.
Do you actually have sex with these girls?
Well, we don't just play computer games.
With both of them?
Well, with Sandy's mom here, it's sort of, strictly just like basement business.
What does that mean?
It means I'm working on it.
What has been a mostly awkward, strained relationship in the film is finally starting to open up, and slowly the writer, Kenneth Lonergan, sparks the desire in the viewer for these two to have a closer, more father-son-like relationship. And unlike Sorkin, Lonergan never makes the mistake of inappropriately inserting a clever line in the middle of a more intense, emotional scene. Now, again, I'm not saying I didn't love The Social Network when it first came out. I did. And I'm not saying that every movie in theaters needs to be a self-serious, complex, emotional tour de force. But I do think it's important to recognize that while cleverness can be fun and catchy and easy to include in trailers, overusing it can sometimes hurt a good story. It can be counterproductive. And that every once in a while, we as writers might have to give up this if we ever want to achieve this.
Lee,
Lee,
I'm
you gotta, I don't know what.
No,
I don't want to torture you.
You're not torturing me.
I just want to tell you that I was wrong.
No. You understand? There's nothing there. There's nothing there.
That's not true. That's not true.
Man, no one writes like you, Sorkin.
Piece of cake.